Hello and welcome to Birdsview English. We are excited to share our new platform that will tell amazing stories about the culture, history, and progress of Bangladesh and South Asia. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. At Birdsview English, our goal is to share Bangladesh's story with the world. Through interesting talks, inspiring stories, and expert opinions, we want to show the successes, challenges, and unique culture of this lively region. We are happy to have experts from around the world with us. They will share their ideas on many topics like development, culture, innovation, and partnerships. They will help connect Bangladesh, South Asia, and the rest of the world. Join us as we celebrate and share these wonderful stories. Let's work together to make Bangladesh voice heard globally. Thank you for being part of this journey. Salam and greetings from Dallas, Texas. This is Kazi Hassan hosting episode number 7 of Birdsview English. Currently, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and recorded version will be available right after the show. As a platform promise, we bring important issues affecting South Asia and beyond. Today, we will be discussing such a subject which is challenging the balance of power in South and Southeast Asia. As mentioned, today's discussion focuses one of the most pressing humanitarian and geopolitical issues in South Asia, the Rohingya crisis. With the US passing Burma Act, questions arise about its implication for regional balance, global power of dynamics, and Bangladesh's future strategy. We are honored to have with us three distinguished guests. Let me introduce to you our distinguished guests. First, bringing in Professor Shahiduz Zaman, former professor of International Relations Department, University of Dhaka. He was a direct teacher of mine, so I'm so proud to have you in our show. Welcome to our show, Professor Shahiduz Zaman. How are you today?
Thank you.
You're most welcome. We'll be right back with you with lots of questions and your analysis. Then I'm bringing in Shaikat Rushdee. He's a media personality and political analyst. He lived in different countries, Bangladesh, UK, currently living in Canada. A regular participant of Birdsview English and Bangla. Shaikat Rushdee, welcome to our program. How is your day going so far?
It's great. And thank you very much for inviting me to this interesting discussion, as well as my greetings to the panelists.
You are cordially welcome. We'll be back with you with our questions and would like to hear your analysis on the subject. Now I'm bringing in Dr. Sayeed Iftekhar Ahmed. He's a faculty member, School of Security and Global Studies, American Public University System. He's a regular contributor to Birdsview, Bangla and English. Dr. Sayeed Iftekhar Ahmed, welcome to our show and wishing you a belated happy birthday. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to your show again.
It's always a pleasure to have you in our show. So let's dive into our discussion. We are going to start with Professor Shahiduz Zaman. Very basic questions, since I was talking right before the program that our focus group is laymen who don't have much ideas what's going on in Burma and what's the impact on the situation in Burma towards the whole region. So let me ask you the question from the academic perspective. How has the Rohingya crisis evolved in terms of regional security since 2017? Professor Shahiduz
Thank
Zaman,
you very
it's yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to get into the heart of the subject matter with an effort to draw your interests in a more specific manner. That is, if I can highlight the developments that had occurred over the last several months, that perhaps would add a lot of momentum to our discussion. Some of the developments that took place, as you know, the Arakan army is fully in control of the Rakhine region. In recent days, the Arakan army has become so provocative that it has been expanding the realm of its illegal maritime activity, whereby it has been capturing Bangladeshi fishermen from the river Naf, and the numbers are increasingly going up. It appears that while the central government in Myanmar has no control over Arakan, and the Arakan region has declared itself completely to be autonomous, short of freedom, they act on their own. The entire coastal region is guarded by the Arakan army, and their activities are amounting to some sort of a piracy. They are not answerable to the international community. They are not answerable to the United Nations agencies. They are not guided by international law, and therefore we are facing a pariah state type of situation in the Rakhine region. Now, in recent times, our national security advisor, Dr. Khalilur Rahman, had said to the press, the media, that the Rakhine question, the Rohingya question, has been completely dormant over the last several years. Nothing concrete had occurred, and he claimed that he was taking initiatives that would bring about certain shifts in the momentum of interaction purely with our own initiatives rather than relying on the international community. What the National Security Advisor was indicating was that he had started a dialogue with the United States, his counterpart in the United States. He had created a basis for some sort of interaction with the Arakan army, and as we gain more knowledge about the way he seemed to deal with it, it appeared that our intelligence, the DGFI, had already penetrated quite effectively into the Rakhine region. They have, as depending as the sources indicate, that the DGFI had over the last 1 year, have gained a very thorough idea of the specific field conditions in Arakan. When the National Security Advisor indicated that there were communications going on with the Arakan army, it's important to point out that some of the leaders of the Arakan army had come to Dhaka. There were interactions with our military leadership, and the impression that was gained in Dhaka would be that Bangladesh, even the military apparatus, would have some access to the Arakan region. The idea of would be to give some access for humanitarian purposes within the Arakan region. But as a student of security, my idea of Dr. Khalil's initiatives was that the United States, its military operations, its special forces, would have some presence in our territory near the borders with Myanmar, near Ramu, where our 10 division is placed, and that there would be an access to intrude into Arakan. The fact is that the whole purpose was camouflaged by some sort of humanitarian activity to deal with the recent sufferings of the people not having enough food. But the coercive part of it was that there could be some basis for the Bangladesh army to develop a foothold in Arakan. But when Dr. Khalil had taken such an initiative, there was a very sharp reaction from the Indians. They treated the whole interaction by the Bangladesh Army and the US Special Forces with tremendous suspicion, and they rejected any such interaction. The Indian military developed ties with the Arakan Army and tried to apply a propaganda that any intrusion by the Bangladesh Army would infringe into the newly gained status of control by the Arakan Army in the region. This was a development. Ultimately, unfortunately, our army chief started a movement trying to place the whole approach by the Americans with the help of Dr. Khalil as a risky effort. And he developed a theme called No Corridor, No Corridor. And Bangladesh was totally overwhelmed by political slogans of No Corridor. Dr. Khalil lost interest, and the entire process seemed to have evaporated. We haven't been hearing much. But in recent time, the other development is that over the last 1 or 2 months, the Arakan Army has been sending messages that Arakan, under the leadership of the Arakan Army, would like to join Bangladesh. Now, how authentic this is not known. But this sort of messages that come from the Arakan Army chief is not new. But the idea of suggesting making a dovish approach to the Bangladesh, suggesting that Arakan could join as a part of the sovereign state of Bangladesh, this has not been received very in a trustworthy manner from the Bangladesh region. There has been no discussions to look into it. There has been no attitude of considering the validity of it. It could simply be a propaganda ploy by the Arakan Army, and it could simply be a conspiracy to sort of turn the efforts of the Bangladesh government into some sort of a neutrality. Now, the other development, consequently, which is directly from the Bangladesh Army sources, is that Bangladesh, the military leadership in Bangladesh has expressed grave concern over the uncontrolled activity of the Arakan Army, especially the piracy and the infiltration of our borders and the uncontrolled behavior of the Arakan Army. Our military sources, ISPR sources, one of the current news is that has warned that Bangladesh would be forced to physically intervene in Arakan unless Arakan Army abides by international law and restrains its movements on the coastal area. That there would be some sort of a warning to the Arakan Army, and if the Arakan Army does not apply the norms of international law, then the Bangladesh Army would intervene. There were also further indications from our military sources that it would take only 7 days for Bangladesh to gain physical control of the Arakan region on the basis of the very specific intelligence support that has been gathered so far. But it's also been pointed out by our military sources that as far as the military capturing of the Arakan region, that may be possible within a matter of 7 days. But the real problem would be the question of consolidation of that capture. How would you make sure that an Arakan army, which is so war hardy and is rated as the best among the insurgent fighting groups in Myanmar, how can you bring them under a military control over the long period of time? So that has up to now remained a dilemma. It's been said that Bangladesh Army must go back into training, that although we have a lot of experience in the hill tracts and have continued to develop the experience of war fighting in hilly regions, which is very common in Myanmar, in the Arakan region, we need to develop our military machine, which has been so deeply involved in civilian affairs. In fact, former army chief has today made an appeal through the social media that the army should be withdrawn immediately from civilian responsibilities and must be imparted the necessary military training in the context of the threat that seems to be emerging on our eastern frontiers. So this is a very flexible situation right now. It's almost clear that our military power needs to be developed to an optimum level, because we have had a long period of dependence on international sources. Dr. Khalilur Rahman had hosted a conference in Cox's Bazar about less than a month ago. It was very well organized and well arranged, and it publicized a lot of what Bangladesh expects from the United Nations when a conference will be held towards the end of September in New York regarding the Rohingya crisis. The whole idea of having a get-together of international bodies who are involved in relief activities was to upgrade the level of consciousness on the Rohingya problem. And so that in September...
Zaman, I have to stop you here, and I'll be right back with you. You have given us such interesting facts that most of the people are not aware of. We'll be right back with you with more questions. Now I'm going to Shaikat Rushdee. In the beginning, when the crisis started, there was a lot of international attention, but it seems it has died down since the Trump administration taking over, and they decided not to aid in that quantity to the Rohingya refugees. How the international media is playing down, and also Professor Shahiduz was talking about army taking over, or army be in training if something happens to get into that area of Burma. So what do you think would be the implication? So the two questions together.
Yeah, thank you. And most importantly, actually, this crisis is very deepening in our society as well as international arena. But with many of the situation has changed over, and particularly as we have seen that the former U.S. President Biden has enacted the Burma Act in 2022. But since the changeover in the U.S. administration with the new president, this interest has gone, and it is no more a top priority from the part of the U.S., what we have been seeing. And as the only superpower at this moment in the world, if U.S. is not providing much interest to a regional or international affair that does not get a lot of tracking, as well as that the humanitarian aid has been curtailed down by the U.S. for the Rohingya issue, and the International Organization of Migration and UNHCR altogether, they have asked for $934.5 million for enhanced aid to the Rohingya refugees, and right now their aid has been cut down to 50%. So the most important part from the discussion we are having here, the looming crisis from 2 points. And number one, what Mr. Shahiduz Zaman sir has already pointed out about the military crisis, and it has been deepened further, and the humanitarian crisis is deepened further also because of the cut into that aid for the Rohingya refugees, and the number of Rohingya refugees have influxed from August or September 2017 to right now. That time it was like 700,000. Now it is almost 1.2 million to 1.5 million. International organizations are projecting as 1.5 million. So now the most important question, there are two things I must focus on this. Number one, when the crisis erupted, as we know, this is not a new crisis, and the refugee crisis also not new in the whole world. And the Rohingya crisis we have experienced in 1978, and that time about 200,000 refugees have been sent back, and most of them, almost 100%, are repatriated by 1979. The international reports are there because of the strategic measures taken by the then President Ziaur Rahman. And thereafter, again in 1992, another 200,000 Rohingya refugees arrived. And that time I was working with the Canadian High Commission in Dhaka, and I accompanied the High Commissioner, Mr. Emil Govru, to a couple of Rohingya refugee camps, and has been briefed by the local authorities and the camp coordinators and the Chittagong Divisional Commissioner. And what we have learned that it was very difficult to send them back, but half of them are sent back, as so far we know, more than half of them, because some new kids, now children are born, and the number has increased. But more than 20,000 also died. But right now, since the Army League government was in power and Sheikh Hasina has taken it in a completely different way, which we have not discussed yet, that is, she was, so far what we understand from the media and the international media, as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, that she has taken it totally in a different strategy. She was probably listening to the Indian government's instructions not to take this issue internationally. And when Canada was taking much interest, as you know, Canada is one of the most generous country in dealing with the refugees and taking them into their wings. And this, our former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sent the former Premier of Ontario Province, Bob Rae, who is now Canada's UN representative, and he went there in 2018, early 2018, and submitted a 35-page report, which I have read out. And then there are some special recommendations, and Canadian government is following those recommendations on humanitarian aid side. And one of the major component of the donors is Canada. But one of the important thing we found from the media that Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, also offered to take some of the refugees in Canada, those who are particularly women, sexually assaulted or raped. But the then government, Sheikh Hasina government, did not pass to that request, and she did not allow other the players to get into that issue. So she relied mostly on India and China, and that was the lost case that time. But right now, what we are seeing, that there is a special high representative on Rohingya issues. What he was talking about, the advisor for foreign affairs, Mr. Tawhid Hassan, is speaking in a different way. So there is also no coherent policy of the current interim government. So we are really in a fuss, and I'm not sure how it will be formulated in the near future. It is so much deep, but only the military solution, as we also heard from Professor Shahiduz Zaman, that they are thinking, is a wishful thinking, they can win over by 7 days. But how you're going to consolidate this? So there is no outcome, no vision at this moment. So we are in a very desirous situation, so far I understand.
Okay, thank you. You gave us an update what's going on in the situation. We'll be back with you with more questions. Thank you so much, Shaikat Rushdee. Now I'm going to Sayeed Iftekhar Ahmed. Burma Act. It was enacted in 2021 in US Congress. Most of the people don't have much idea what is said in Burma Act, but it's reported in newspapers or the media that US has the intention to counter Chinese influence in the area and make a division or make a few states in Burma, which is called Myanmar now. So what do you think that the issues going on for a prolonged period of time in Burma or Arakan of the refugee crisis? Is it due to Burma Act? So what's your take in there? As also Professor Shahiduz was telling that there was an offer from Arakan Army that they want to join Bangladesh. So how feasible is that? Is Bangladesh Army can do that? If they do that, so what will be reaction from the international community and the central government of Burma? Are they militarily stronger than Bangladesh Army, or how they going to counter this effort? It's all hypothetical, but Burma Act, we would like to hear your analysis. Dr. Sayeed Iftekhar Ahmed.
Thank you. Burma Act was enacted 2022 under Biden administration. The goal was to impose sanction on Burmese military junta, and because 2021 there was a military coup, and the Burmese Myanmar international political position was not aligned with the USA. So, and to support the pro-democratic movement, US actually enacted this act, and US imposed sanctions, and there are the provisions to provide some humanitarian aids to various ethnic groups and others. But there are two more legislations under Donald Trump administration. One is called Brave Burma Act, and another is Burma Gap Act, 2025. There are two more legislations with the Burma Act. Under the Brave Burma Act, it targeted mainly financial institutions in Myanmar. And under the Burma Gap Act, it actually opened up avenue to provide more humanitarian assistance to Burmese people. So when President Donald Trump came to power, the people thought that he would take more stern actions against the Burmese military government. But we know that suddenly he totally U-turned his foreign policy in South Asia and other parts of the world. For example, in South Asia, traditionally, he abandoned his allies, American allies, India, and he shifted his focus to Pakistan. And because there are some mineral resources in Pakistan, etc. And many people become surprised that instead of imposing sanctions, President Donald Trump lifted sanctions of some of the companies who have a cooperation with the Burmese military government. Not only that, he showed interest that US is willing to work with Myanmar. And he lifted some options, and he welcomed that Burmese business holders and companies, if they would like, they can invest in the US. Not only that, he told that in the, I think the province called the Kachin, next to China, there are mineral resources, and US would like to involved in this process. So there is totally different approach now under President Donald Trump administration. Donald Trump wanted good cooperations with the military government. So it's totally changed the equation the way it was a few months back. And the number two questions, what you asked, that is, how much feasible that Bangladesh and Arakan will join Bangladesh. It's totally absurd concept. It is not clear that whether Arakan army really showed interest. Let's say if even they showed interest, it's not feasible, or it is not possible for Bangladeshi military army by force to take entire Rakhine province and integrate with Bangladesh. There are so many reasons behind that. First of all, Bangladesh military is not that powerful to do this types of act. And to have this types of powerful military, you need a powerful economy. Without having a powerful economy, is a country like Bangladesh is tremendous economic and other crisis. And Bangladesh has no aspiration, no geopolitical aspiration. Bangladesh is not in a situation to deal with this types of problem. Think about India. A country like India could not handle Pakistan just a few months. In this case, it is totally absurd that Bangladesh can actually act beyond their territory. If Bangladesh is somebody, and Bangladesh government totally understand that. There is no doubt about it. Bangladesh government has, whether it's an interim government or previous governments, they do not have any beyond the territory aspirations. And it will be totally suicidal for Bangladesh, because there are lots of international actors, including China, Russia, India, and United States. All will be involved in this type of equation, and it's not possible for Bangladesh to deal with that. So it is totally absurd, and this way, this crisis will not be solved. Only Bangladesh, what Bangladesh can do, only through dialogue and negotiation. Bangladesh has no other means and no other tools. And when it comes to dialogue and negotiations, Bangladesh is in a very weaker position. Bangladesh is not in a powerful position to pursue its voices and views to other actors. Bangladesh has to tremendously depend on China, India, USA, and what Bangladesh totally lacked, Bangladesh did not pay much attention to involve Russia, because Russia also has tremendous influence on Myanmar government, because Myanmar military industry highly integrated with Russia. Bangladesh mainly focused on US-based approach, whether Hasina government or current government, although Hasina government tried to include what is called China and India, but they totally miss Russia. So Bangladesh, what Bangladesh current government needs to do, involve USA, China, and Russia and India to respond to this problem, and to pursue Myanmar government, to pursue Arakan armies to take back the Rohingya refugees to their land. Without that, Bangladesh has a few options. Bangladesh has actually virtually no options to deal with this situation.
Thank you. Your analysis is very thorough. You are saying without a central government in Burma, and also with the help of all the powers playing in that region, we don't have much hope sending back our refugees. I would like to get back to Professor Shahiduz Zaman and ask, do you see Rohingya refugees going back in near future? With so many things happening in Burma, there are lots of insurgency happening and no central government with control all over the country. So what would you say? Do we have any hope to send the refugees back?
Thank you. I see the Rohingyas going back to Myanmar, Burma, Arakan only if we act on it. My preceding speaker has portrayed such a cynical picture, such a negative picture, which I think is very traditional, very conventional, and very outdated, very obsolete. He seems to have no faith or any trust on the capability of the Bangladesh military strength. In recent times, Bangladesh has acquired a very continuous flow of modern weapons through the courtesy of China and Pakistan. What my friend has been talking about has been in defense of the policy of appeasement of Sheikh Hasina, the Awami League government, and also the Foreign Office, which had been completely subject to the control of the Indian Foreign Ministry over the last 15 years. A policy of appeasement had developed. Now, our fighting capability is not so weak. Our military strength is good enough to take care of Arakan. The Myanmar military has lost complete control over the Arakan region, except for certain pockets like Sitwe and the maritime region, which is still contained, surrounded by the Arakan army. Now, the Arakan region has been thoroughly surveyed by our intelligence capability. Bangladesh has the 7th largest population in the world. We are in a process of gaining aircraft from China, which was not done over the last 15 years. Very good quality advanced aircraft. Just 2 squadrons of aircraft will be good enough for us to control the skies of Arakan. There is a lot of new realization within our military establishment that they have to use some degree of military power in order to contain the very aggressive acts of the Arakan army. You just simply cannot sit behind and pretend that you are so weak that you would let the Arakan army enter your territory and carry out heinous and set up camps. So I believe that Bangladesh, if it has an elected government by next February, will be in a position to conduct foreign policy more positively. Right now, the foreign policy under the control of Mr. Tawhid Hossain still lingers on the old Hasina approach of appeasement on the question of Rohingyas. To say that we can expect the international community to do for us is to be in a utopia. A utopia which we have gone through over the last few years. There is no way that the international community will help you to send the Rohingyas back, because in the Arakan region, this is a civil war that will go on again for the next 50 years. The civil war in Arakan will never end. It has been going on for the last 70 years. It will go on for another 100 years. This is the culture of the region. So the application of force is necessary. That's what is being done by Thailand. Thailand has selectively used military force and has gone even well inside Karen territory in order to make sure that the Karens can go into it. The Chinese have even used military force in parts of the Shan province where the Shans were driven out by the Myanmar military. The Chinese have selectively used force against Myanmar. In Bangladesh, there is clearly a realization now, the military leadership is talking about exercising military force in the Arakan. We are securing very good quality missiles from Turkey and Pakistan. Recently, the Pakistan High Commissioner, who had been serving in Yangon, in Myanmar, has been transferred to Dhaka. He has a lot of first-hand experience and is helping our diplomatic process in a certain way in order to apply our intelligence machinery effectively. Now, what last but not the least is the potential power of the Rohingya new generation. These are aspects which are completely ignored by my friend, the preceding speakers. The Rohingya new generation has realized that it's only them who can recover their lost land. The Rohingya new generation is ready to develop the military power, and every day hundreds of Rohingyas are recruited. They're going to inside Myanmar, and the government, this present government, is now reviewing its earlier policy of discouraging the Rohingya military force. It has been suggested through our intelligence sources that it is not difficult for the Rohingyas to develop a 50,000 strong military force. Their military force is now well over several thousands. Now, you remember the Arakan army is not very big. It's only about 20,000 strong. They are very hardy, militarily hardy, but they're the Rohingya themselves, if they are well equipped, if they get a good supply of weapons, which is very much possible. It was never done during the Hasina period of appeasement, but it's being done now. The Rohingya army, if it develops a certain degree of military experience, then a possibility of consolidating the occupation of Arakan can be possible. So these are ideas that are emerging. If new ideas are floated, and if we consider to get drowned by the cynicism of the previous speaker, there is absolutely a hopeless situation. There must be some degree of respect for military capability. Military power is applied in Myanmar by Thailand and China. It has not been applied because Sheikh Hasina's abnormal control over Bangladesh had turned us into completely a militarily weak power. If we continue to follow a policy of appeasement, then very soon the Arakan army will capture Bandorban. Very soon the Arakan army will capture our St. Martin Island. A policy of non-military approach and to rely on international supporters will be absolutely a zero situation for us. So I would be taking the risk of proposing, although there is some degree of strategic negligence on our part, but the strategic potential of the use of force to satisfy foreign policy ends is now gaining more and more momentum in Bangladesh. And if there is an elected government by next February and March, I'm sure that we'll be ready to apply our military capability to a limited degree in Arakan, and the Arakan army can only be tamed through the use of force. There is no other way. It is only the language of force that the Arakan army respects, and the entire Arakan Myanmar insurgency respects. This is a region where the civil war and the insurgency will go on and on. There is no chance that it will end. So for that purpose, the trust and the idea of using money from the international community is going to go down the drain. As you know, President Trump has already cut off all funding, and it is already, right now, it is half of what used to be. Within the next 6 months, there will be no money to feed the Rohingyas. This is a very important aspect. The Indians are provoking the Arakan army not to allow Bangladesh to meddle in Arakan. We are really faced by a situation where we cannot continue to feed this huge population, neither can we integrate them in our community. There is a great deal of interest now to turn towards the military option. I think I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Shahiduz Zaman. He is very famous to give us some radical ideas. So this is a radical idea. Let me go to Shaikat Rushdee. And from Professor Shahiduz Zaman's viewpoint, this is true that political and goodwill didn't work out for Bangladesh and Rohingya crisis. Bangladesh tried to integrate India and China, didn't work out. The Rohingyas are still here. So what will be your take from Professor Shahiduz Zaman idea that Bangladesh has to militarily interfere, uh, not to the whole Burma, but to the Arakan side? Is it feasible? He has some given example, Thailand taking action to the neighboring places. And also, we have seen in the past some of the countries invaded other countries and took some part of their country, especially Russia is a good example. Uh, they annexed part of Georgia, the whole Georgia in the past, and Crimea in the past. So, what would you say if is Bangladesh is in a position to do that, or babysit this huge number of Rohingya refugees for an uncertain period of time?
Thank you. In fact, in practical terms, no military overpower or taking over from of a country cannot bring immediate solution. As we see from the Ukraine, the Crimea has been taken over by Russia with a referendum from the part of Crimea, and since the war started, therefore officially maybe it is shorter, but more than 10 years with Ukraine and Russia. One of the former superpower is cannot win over Ukraine because of the Western support to Ukraine. Actually, only military solution cannot bring peace and any solution to any political issues here. But there should be a two-pronged application, so far I understand. And we can have that reference from 1978 when the Rohingya refugees came into Bangladesh. I mentioned in 1977 first, and in 1978 it was about 200,000. And then the President Ziaur Rahman took a two-pronged initiative. He also mobilized the military in the Chittagong Hill Tracts and the bordering areas of Arakan state and within Bangladesh. And it was a very strong military presence. That time military is not so strong as now, so far we understand. But also from the international area, he has a personal, higher standard and acceptability to different countries and other OIC. And he also mobilized support in UN and also through the OIC. So that has helped Bangladesh to win over the situation and return back all the Rohingyas. All of them are repatriated. I just went through an article which says by 1997, all of the Rohingya refugees were repatriated to Myanmar. Now the issue here is, number one, the current government is lacking coordination within its, whatever I can say, from the Chief Advisor Office and the Foreign Ministry, as Mr. Shahiduz Zaman has mentioned, that it is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Bangladesh is too much still influenced by the Indian government, South Bloc, whatever. But it may be. But the point here is Arakan state is now controlled by the Arakan army. And even in Myanmar government, the Naypyidaw government is not fully, they do not have full control over the Myanmar. So the situation is very volatile. And it is not like that you are going to hit, I'm not sure whether Mr. Shahiduz Zaman is suggesting Bangladesh will attack with these missiles and military power to Naypyidaw or only Arakan. But if we apply this thing to only Arakan, but Naypyidaw will not remain silent. And I'm just going through right now the global firepower index. Bangladesh is in 35th in ranking, and Myanmar is 37th ranking. They're not very far from Bangladesh. So their military strength is also very strong, and they have full support from China and some support from Russia. So should be two-pronged. That is the military mobilization along the border to stop further infiltration of Rohingya refugees or whatever the refugees. And second, international lobby. You know that in 2019, when Gambia lost a case with the International Court of Justice accusing Myanmar for genocide in Arakan, and that case was partially win over Myanmar. That is great. But since then, the internationalization of this Rohingya issue has been dived down because of the Bangladesh government. The then government, the Ahmed government, did not take adequate initiative to handle this issue. Rather, there is a media report. It is a what I can say, kind of from the horse's mouth. We know that Sheikh Hasina was holding this power, and she also told publicly that my sister Sheikh Rehana said, "You are feeding," which is not true. 160 million people of Bangladesh. Can't you feeding another 1 million? So I allowed them to get into Bangladesh. And people say that she was intending to get a Nobel Peace Prize for allowing Rohingya refugees to be inside Bangladesh. And like what Mr. Donald Trump is now asking for Nobel Peace Prize. So these are the all political gimmicks. And thereafter, 1 million or more than 1 million people's life is under serious trouble. They are suffering, and their aid has been cut into 50% right now. And as mentioned, by the next 6 months, there will be not much fund. If 1,934 million dollars have been requested, US dollar, but no commitment has been made so far. So far, I know Canadian government has some commitments. So what is the future? So we can wait until, number one, the government does not have the full control over Myanmar. And the Bangladesh government, the interim government, is not very coordinated, and it doesn't have cohesion within its various ministries. So we have to wait and see. But internationalization of this issue, as well as the military mobilization from the both sides, could have been yielding some results, I understand. But not only military solution cannot bring peace, as well as repatriation of refugees from Bangladesh. I don't see in any immediate future, next 6 months, any Rohingya refugees going to back to from Bangladesh to Myanmar.
Okay, thank you, Shahiduz. I'm going to Dr. Sayeed Iftekhar Ahmed. Not too long ago, Dr. Yunus promised that Rohingyas will be going back to their homeland and will celebrate the coming Eid. So, what would be your suggestion for realistic solution of this issue? Diplomacy didn't work. Professor Shahiduz Zaman is advocating military action, and it seems you're in the right in the middle. So what would be your suggestion to solve this issue?
I already said my suggestions, and I completely agree with Mr. Shaikat Rushdee. He nicely explained what's the problem of military intervention, because when you military intervene, there are a couple of issues there. Bangladesh military and Myanmar military almost have the same capabilities. And on top of it, what Mr. Rushdee nicely mentioned, that the moment you intervene Arakan province, the Nepal government will also actually react, because it's the part of the land. Nepal government doesn't think that it's a different state. So when any part of the state when intervened, entire country will mobilize. It may actually raise the national sentiment of all the ethnic groups, and may help the Nepal government to consolidate their power. Because now there is a power struggle, because the pro-democratic movement versus the military junta and even the Communist Party, they're also started the armed insurgency. But when their country was attacked by the foreign country, and if the goal is to capture the entire province, because the Chinese intervention limited, and China is kind of quote-unquote Myanmar mentor and is one of the big superpowers. And Thailand also border skirmishes is very low scale. But if the goal, a country would like to take the entire province, it will be a big repercussion. Not only regionally, it will be international repercussion. Even the US will not allow to do that. China will not allow to do that. So whether Bangladesh is in a position to handle China and America, we need to think about this line. And if US will impose sanction, Bangladesh has to face this types of dilemma and issues too. And we know internally Bangladesh politics, how it's going on. They are an extremely polarized country in all these issues. So it's a different question. So military solution, what Mr. Rushdee said, yes, Bangladesh, what needs to do, secure its border. That there should not be any infiltration by the Arakan army, what we witnessed. Bangladesh government need to ensure and need to secure their border. And what Bangladesh government needs to do, that increase its diplomatic efforts. Without diplomatic, the Rohingya government vis-a-vis the Arakan army, it's not possible Rohingya refugees to return to Myanmar. And unfortunately, this Rakhine's armies, they're also against refugees. And there is in 1982, there was an act. And under this act, they stripped the Rohingyas their citizenship rights. So until they reenact this law that knows Rohingyas also part of Myanmar society, it would be almost impossible that Rohingyas will go back to their country. So it's a very complicated issue. It's not that so easy. And what we saw that US government also is not that much interested about Rohingya issues. So what the government will come next, the elected government in future, they will have to deal with lots of complicated issues. But what they need to do, consistently working on these issues and to involve multiple actors, especially the big actors, to create lots of pressure. And only through this way, we are hopeful that Bangladesh will be able to solve or handle these issues. Otherwise, just only relying on militaries, and it's kind of, or only relying on hawkish policies, I don't think so it will solve the problem. It will further exacerbate the problem. It will create much more, the refugee problems, and Bangladesh will involved in a prolonged war. It will tremendously impact the economies, and it will create further political tensions inside the country. So Bangladesh, I still don't see that much capability to handle this problem through military. And in any part of the world, Mr. Rushdee nicely mentioned that even the country like Russia, years after years is involving with Ukraine. So whether Russia cannot solve this problem by force, China is a big power, did not think to solve the Taiwan problems by force. So in this case, Bangladesh would be very difficult. It will not be a wise decision to go only militarily. So Bangladesh, what needs to do, in summary, that they need to secure their border, strong military presence in the entire border, and at the same time to do kind of diplomatic effort to solve this problem. And only by this, we are hoping that in near future, Bangladesh hopefully will be able to address or solve this problem.
Okay, thank you so much, Sayeed Iftekhar Ahmed. You are talking about a concerted effort with diplomacy and working with all other countries. Now I'm going to Professor Shahiduz Zaman, the last question of today's discussion. First, it's not relevant to today's show, but it's just a curiosity. The question number one is, do you still believe in new power will make a deterrence of Bangladesh towards the neighboring countries? That's not relevant to our subject today. And other question is, can Bangladesh make or get approval or permission to interfere militarily from India, China, US, and Russia? So two questions together, and this is the last question of the show today. Professor Shahiduz Zaman.
Could you kindly repeat the first question?
The first question was, it was a huge international hue and cry when you made a statement that if Bangladesh gets some nukes from Pakistan, it will deter India. Are you holding the same opinion as of today?
Yes, certainly I do. I think it is very important to develop close military ties with Pakistan, and we are already in the process. Pakistan is in our senior military officers have spent a good deal of time in Pakistan over the last several months. We are in a process of acquiring very high quality missiles and other types, even missile producing capacity. We are in fact in a situation where we can greatly upgrade our military strength, because with cooperation with Pakistan, we'll also be encouraging China to help us directly in developing an umbrella, a security umbrella, especially an aerial security umbrella, which China will be convinced once Pakistan is involved directly. As you know, the Lal Monir Hat air base is being upgraded. When we consider the military option to be used, it doesn't mean that you will simply rely on the military. Our military option has never been used. It is the most underutilized military in the world because of the passive nature of interpretation, because that this military has now turned into a corporate culture. What are they involved in? We have thousands of military people. All they're involved in is in corporate mechanism. The idea of buying lands, building more and more golf courses, having a lifestyle which is completely dependent on their civilian counterparts. As you know, there are some very brilliant officers who have been very frustrated, victimized in the military army period. I can name one: Colonel Hassan, Colonel Hassan Nasser, then the son of Ghulam Azam, Brigadier Azmi. These are very professional military officers. They want to sacrifice their lives. Unfortunately, our military culture must be now very thoroughly reconverted to a military option. As you know, Karl von Clausewitz, the military thinker of the 19th century, had once made very remarkable statement that applies on us, that if you don't use the sword at all, the sword is rusted. And our military power is worth using in the region to the extent that it can add to the diplomatic capacity. Diplomacy can never succeed unless you have the military option behind you. This is a policy of, in my subject, it's the realpolitik. It's the idea that only the word of diplomacy can work, can be persuasive to your counterpart in Myanmar only if they know that we have the power to militarily deter them. We have the willingness to sacrifice our lives in order to achieve a certain limited military targets. The military option is used by all our neighboring countries. My dear friend, if you look around, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Turkey, all of these countries use the military option. But if you discourage a complete non-use of the military, you are at the mercy of these small countries. Myanmar is not a country that has any ability to face the brilliant fighting powers of our pilots. As you know, in Pakistani times, our pilots have literally controlled the air warfare against India. Some of the best pilots were from our part of the world, and we do not have the right type of planes, although we have very good professional flyers. What do you think the United States is doing right now? Are they not trying to apply the Burma Act? We have American Special Forces in Bangladesh. A military officer in active service suddenly died in a hotel in Dhaka in mysterious circumstances. That's not very important, but the important thing is that even the United States had taken into confidence Bangladesh's military role in terms of implementing the Burma Act. And there is no money that will go on coming to finance 11 million refugees. This is one of the largest concentrations. We've got to create a safe zone within Arakan. We've got to make sure that the Arakan army coexist with the Rohingyas. Ultimately, that is the only answer, that the Arakan is a land where both Rakhines and Rohingyas have been the right claimers. And if we can allow Rakhines to live in our country, then the Rakhines will have to realize, if necessary through the use of force, that they must allow the Rohingyas to also inhabit in Rakhine. As long as they coexist and as long as they share the resources of Rakhine and the offshore resources, then we will consider ourselves to be, having the type of military security we desire. But as we have a civilian government, hopefully by next year, or by that time, I'm sure our military capability will greatly be upgraded from what it was over the last 15 years. We have to remember the fact that diplomacy can only work when you have the military option ready to be used if diplomacy fails. I think I have said enough.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your wonderful analysis and ideas. And this will conclude our show today. We have seen today that the Rohingya crisis is not only a humanitarian tragedy, but also a regional and global challenge. The Burma Act begins new dimension, but whatever it translates into tangible change depends on regional politics, global priorities, and Bangladesh's own strategy. The conversation must continue beyond today, both in policy circles and the public spheres. I do thank our esteemed panelists today, Professor Shahiduz Zaman, Dr. Saeed Iftekhar Ahmed, and Shaikat Rushdee. Thank you so much, viewers. I hope to see you again in our next Birds View English show. I hope all of you will have a nice, good day. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.